Harley's new CEO just dropped a bombshell. Riders weren't ignored. They were abandoned. That betrayal is already visible in empty dealerships, shrinking inventories, and rising prices that lock out loyal fans. If you've ever walked into a Harley shop lately, you've felt it yourself. Less choice, less community, and less of the brand's soul. All of this traces back to one strategy that Wall Street loved but riders hated. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see what these changes mean for your bike, your wallet, and the future of the ride you love. A confession on day one. Harley's new CEO didn't sugarcoat it. He said riders were abandoned. Jochen Zeits, the architect of Harley's recent strategy, had been celebrated for steering the company through turbulent times, but beneath the surface, frustration brewed. Enter Arthur Artie stars, a new chief executive stepping into the role at a moment when the brand's survival hangs in the balance. From the moment he addressed employees and investors, stars broke with corporate tradition. Instead of echoing safe talking points, he admitted outright that Harley had alienated its most loyal base under Zeits' leadership. In his first remarks, Stars acknowledged a painful truth. Too many riders felt abandoned. He spoke not about profitability or market expansion, but about betrayal. Riders who had carried the Harley flag for decades felt ignored while flashy strategies targeted investors and non-riders. This kind of candor is rare in corporate America, where admitting fault is seen as weakness. Yet for Harley, it signaled something else, the possibility of change. Stars' words hit hard because they aligned with what riders had been saying for years. Harley was chasing prestige at the expense of its own people. That honesty set the stage for a reckoning. If Zeits' choices had created distance between Harley and its community, then Stars was promising to bridge it. But words are only the beginning, and his next step was to dissect the very strategy that brought Harley to this crisis. And that strategy carried a name riders would come to resent: the hardwire. The hardwire hangover. Exclusivity was sold as strategy. Instead, it locked out loyal riders. The plan followed the rewire, a rapid reset meant to cut costs, slim operations, and sharpen focus. On paper, it sounded like a masterstroke. Harley would become more desirable, aligning the brand with premium products and high margins. The emphasis was on fewer models, tighter dealer allocations, and higher price tags. For Wall Street, it was exactly the kind of language that sparks confidence. For everyday riders, it became a signal that they were no longer the priority. The flaw was not in wanting Harley to thrive, but in how the strategy defined success. Desirability is a tempting word, but in practice it turned Harley into an exclusive club that too many could no longer afford to enter. Riders who once saved up for years to buy their first Harley suddenly found themselves priced out. Dealers struggled to explain why inventory was shrinking even as customers walked through the door. Investors were told that less could be more, but in showrooms across the country, less simply meant empty floors. Stars did not shy away from naming this hangover. He pointed out that strategies built to comfort investors often left riders in the cold. His critique was not an attack on Zeits personally, but a clear admission. Harley had confused financial polish with cultural strength, and nowhere was that confusion clearer than in the gamble on an electric future that riders never asked for. If you've ever felt Harley lost its way, or if you think Zeits steered the brand wrong, hit like right now, and drop a comment with your take, because riders everywhere are divided. The Livewire disaster. Harley's electric gamble wasn't progress. It was a betrayal in disguise. Launched with fanfare, it came wrapped in promises of innovation and relevance to younger, environmentally conscious riders. But for Harley's core audience, the Livewire was not a dream. It was a betrayal. Riders complained that the bike lacked the soul of a Harley. It had no thunderous rumble, no long-haul grit, and no visceral connection to the brand's heritage. Worse, its price tag, nearly $30,000, was beyond reach for most of the very riders Harley needed to attract. The problems were not just emotional but practical. Charging times were long, range was limited, and touring, the very heart of Harley's identity, was nearly impossible. Instead of becoming a flagship of the future, the Livewire became a symbol of Harley's detachment from reality. Sales flopped, reviews were lukewarm, and the company eventually spun off the Livewire as a separate brand. To many, this was less about innovation and more about damage control. For stars, the Livewire debacle stood as Exhibit A in how Harley's leadership misunderstood its base. The company wanted to impress Wall Street with cutting-edge credentials, but it forgot the simple truth that Harley's riders value authenticity above all else. And while culture and loyalty matter, the real alarm bells were financial, the dashboard flashing red for all to see. Don't wait for the factory to protect you. Gear up right. Helmets, gloves, and Harley-ready accessories are all linked below. When the dashboard turned red, the numbers bled red. Dealers panicked. Wall Street finally lost faith. Revenue slipped. Retail sales in North America fell, and shipments declined across the board. Dealers, once the proud backbone of Harley's empire, reported floor traffic at historic lows. Some cut staff, others closed entirely. In small towns that once relied on Harley dealerships for economic lifeblood, the fallout was immediate. Fewer jobs, less tourism, and a growing sense that the Harley era was ending. Investors, too, began to lose faith. The stock that once symbolized American industrial pride sagged as quarterly earnings fell short of expectations. Analysts warned that without a dramatic turnaround, Harley risked losing not just market share, but relevance. For decades, Harley had been the one motorcycle brand the average American could name. Now it was becoming a cautionary tale of what happens when leadership prioritizes investors over the very riders who fuel the culture. Stars did not mince words in describing this collapse. He argued that Harley had reached a tipping point, either embrace riders again or continue its slide into irrelevance. His honesty carried weight, but it also raised the stakes. Numbers demand solutions, not speeches, and Harley's new leader would have to prove quickly that he could reverse the red flashing lights on the corporate dashboard. And that meant dissecting not just where Harley failed, but how competitors were ready to claim the throne. The price of losing a generation. Harley built walls, not bridges. Young riders walked away in droves. But that dream began to collapse when exclusivity became the strategy. Under the push for premiumization, prices climbed steadily, leaving many younger buyers locked out. Entry-level models that once served as a gateway into the Harley family either disappeared or became unaffordable. Instead of creating an on-ramp for new riders, Harley built a wall. The damage was immediate. College graduates with modest incomes looked elsewhere, seeing Honda or Yamaha as more attainable. Even mid-career riders who admired Harley's brand found themselves priced into other options. What was once an aspirational but reachable goal now felt like a luxury item built for investors rather than riders. The company's attempt to signal exclusivity to Wall Street translated into exclusion for the very people who were supposed to carry the torch. This was not just a financial misstep, it was generational neglect. Harley risked becoming a museum piece admired by older enthusiasts but ignored by the next wave. The danger of pricing out a generation is that once those riders adopt another brand, loyalty rarely swings back. And while Harley pushed riders away, its competitors seized the moment with a playbook Harley itself had abandoned. From clubhouse to boardroom, rebellion once roared from Harley's pipes. Boardroom jargon silenced it. It was never just transportation, it was defiance against conformity. But over time, that clubhouse spirit faded, replaced by the sterile language of boardrooms and investor presentations. Riders who once felt like outlaws now felt like line items on a quarterly report. The transformation was subtle at first. Marketing shifted away from leather and long roads toward corporate buzzwords like desirability and shareholder value. Rallies and local events that once defined the brand lost resources while slick investor decks grew thicker. Harley's voice changed, and with it, the emotional connection eroded. Riders noticed. The language that once shouted rebellion began whispering compliance. This cultural drift was devastating because Harley's true capital was never just financial, it was symbolic. To many, the brand became another corporation chasing Wall Street approval rather than standing for independence. The roar of the engine was drowned out by the drone of corporate messaging. For loyalists, that shift cut deeper than any pricing strategy. Culture was the glue, and when it dissolved, so did trust. Recognizing this, the new CEO laid out a plan, not abstract ideals, but concrete levers he promised to pull. 4 levers to reset the path. Harley's new boss has 4 weapons. Each could save or sink the brand. To restore Harley's place, he pointed to 4 practical levers. First, pricing had to be restructured to create a ladder rather than a wall. That meant building accessible entry models while preserving premium offerings at the top. Second, product cadence required discipline. Harley could not flood the market with endless variations, but needed a rhythm of updates that felt fresh without losing coherence. Third, dealers needed oxygen. Instead of starving showrooms with limited allocations or unrealistic targets, Harley had to restore dealer economics, healthy margins, realistic inventory, and local marketing support. Fourth, the story itself had to change. The narrative needed to return to riders, to freedom, and to belonging. Investor language might remain in the background, but in the foreground had to be authenticity. Stars framed these not as theoretical goals, but as survival levers. Harley could not afford another decade of drift. Each lever represented a commitment to rebuilding trust with the community that once defined the brand. His message was simple. Harley would not win back riders with words alone. It needed proof on the showroom floor. But to prove anything, Harley would have to go beyond plans and face the execution challenges of a modern motorcycle market. Building bikes for the next generation. Winning tomorrow means building bikes today that young riders actually want. The problem is not simply about affordability, but about authenticity. For decades, Harley positioned itself as the brand of freedom, yet younger consumers have not seen themselves reflected in the product line. To win them back, Harley must design smaller displacement motorcycles that remain unmistakably Harley. That means ergonomics tuned for accessibility, but still infused with the raw soul of a V-twin engine that defines the brand's history. Financing programs will play a crucial role. Many potential riders face student debt and stagnant wages, and they will not risk decades of savings for a luxury purchase. By introducing creative payment plans, loyalty incentives, and upgrade paths, Harley can once again become the attainable dream. The aim is not to build cheap bikes, but to build real Harleys scaled for entry-level ownership. Every design choice must echo the thunder and tradition that make a Harley feel alive. For stars, this is not about chasing trends, but about crafting a genuine on-ramp to the lifestyle. Youth engagement is less about price tags and more about belonging, and if Harley fails here, the pipeline of future loyalists will vanish. Yet bikes alone are not enough. The factories and dealers that deliver them must also be rebuilt for survival. Rebuilding the backbone of operations. Harley's backbone cracked, factories bloated, dealers suffocated, trust collapsed. Factories once praised for precision now face bloated product lines and supply chain inefficiencies. The new leadership has called for SKU discipline. Fewer, sharper models that reduce complexity and eliminate the clutter of overlapping variations. This is not about shrinking ambition, but about ensuring that each motorcycle earns its place. Suppliers must also be reset. Rising costs and inconsistent parts erode both quality and margins. Harley cannot afford warranty claims that damage credibility, nor can it tolerate delays that frustrate dealers. By renegotiating contracts and investing in tighter supplier oversight, Harley can rebuild confidence where it matters most: reliability. Dealers, too, need renewed faith. Unrealistic allocations and inventory bottlenecks nearly strangled showrooms during the past decade. Under the new plan, inventory will match demand, protecting dealer economics and preventing empty floors. Warranty trust ties it all together. Nothing undermines a brand faster than machines that fail too soon. Restoring rigorous quality control will allow riders to buy with confidence, ensuring Harley's reputation for durability is more than nostalgia. Still, rebuilding factories and dealers is only half the job. The question of electrification remains unavoidable. We're only halfway through, and the picture already looks darker than most expected. But the deeper we go, the more shocking the revelations become. If you want the unfiltered truth about Harley, make sure to subscribe right now, because what's coming next could reshape the company, and you don't want to miss it. Reframing the electric future. Electric isn't the enemy. Harley's mistake was shoving it down throats. The Livewire debacle proved that Harley could not simply swap thunder for silence and expect loyalty. The lesson, however, is not to abandon electrification but to reposition it. Harley must treat electric models as halo technology, not as replacements for the heritage core. By spinning Livewire into a skunkworks for innovation, Harley can preserve its legacy while exploring the edges of performance and sustainability. Lightweight electric models targeted at urban riders could provide fresh entry points without alienating touring enthusiasts. Accessories like smart charging systems, navigation tools, and safety technology can integrate electric thinking into the Harley experience without forcing riders into a binary choice. Electrification should be an option, not an ultimatum. This reframing gives Harley the chance to lead in innovation while respecting tradition. Younger riders eager for green alternatives can embrace Livewire without older riders feeling abandoned. The core must remain thunderous V-twins, but halo projects can keep Harley credible in the 21st century conversation about technology and sustainability. Yet even with new bikes, stronger factories, and reimagined electrics, Harley cannot move forward until it rewrites its story in language riders trust. Writing a story riders believe. Numbers won't heal Harley. Only a story riders believe can. The company must rewrite its story in words that resonate from garage to highway. The brand once thrived because it was a living narrative of rebellion, brotherhood, and freedom. Somewhere along the way, corporate jargon replaced that roar. To repair the breach, Harley must invest in grassroots events that put bikes back at the center of communities. Rallies, veterans' rides, and local meetups need to be more than marketing stunts. They must feel like genuine extensions of rider culture. Transparency is equally critical. Riders are tired of vague promises. Harley's new leadership must publish clear roadmaps for upcoming models, pricing, and service improvements. When riders see authenticity in messaging and consistency in delivery, trust can be rebuilt. The goal is not to invent a new myth, but to return to plain English. This is your bike, this is your ride, and this is your freedom. In the end, Harley's redemption will depend not on slogans, but on proof that the company understands its people. By stripping away corporate varnish and speaking directly to riders, Harley has a chance to reclaim its voice. A brand cannot heal through silence. Riders want plain words, not polished spin. They want to see leaders show up at rallies, not just in earnings calls. Trust is rebuilt in parking lots, at veterans' rides, and around campfires, not in boardrooms. Harley's story must return to the people. But as Harley tries to tell this new story, the outside world is already reshaping the battlefield in ways the company cannot ignore. A political football on two wheels. Harley became a campaign prop. Factories turned into talking points. Candidates on both sides of the aisle see Harley as a living metaphor for American manufacturing. When Harley outsourced parts of production, critics shouted betrayal of the Buy American promise. Tariffs, trade deals, and plant locations all became political ammunition. In some regions, Harley still stands as an emblem of hometown pride. Local leaders campaign on promises to protect factories and preserve jobs. Yet the same factories have been used as talking points about corporate greed and globalization. The new chief executive inherits not only a company in distress, but also a brand caught in the crossfire of election year soundbites. Plant closures and openings are no longer simple business decisions. They carry symbolic weight for entire towns, feeding into debates on tariffs and free trade. Harley is a reminder that in a global economy, even the most iconic American brands must make hard choices. Politicians know this, and they exploit it, framing Harley's every move as proof of their stance on economic nationalism. Politicians know Harley is more than a company. It is a symbol voters recognize instantly. Campaign ads can show chrome and leather instead of balance sheets, and the message lands. When Harley struggles, it becomes a stage prop, a shorthand for promises about jobs, patriotism, and the American dream. But the most powerful voices are not on campaign stages. They are in the factories and union halls where Harley's workers are fighting for their own future. The fight for the factory floor. On factory floors, unions aren't just bargaining. They're fighting for survival. Job security has frayed as outsourcing and cost-cutting reshape the company's footprint. Unions have rallied around the call for apprenticeships to bring younger talent into the fold, ensuring skills are not lost to time. They argue that Harley's survival depends on investing in workers, not just machines. Profit sharing has emerged as another rallying cry. Employees on the factory floor want to see tangible rewards when the company performs well, not just executive bonuses. This demand is not about greed, it is about pride. Harley's reputation for craftsmanship rests on the shoulders of these workers, and they believe that recognition must be more than symbolic. The clash is not purely adversarial. Many workers still feel immense pride in building bikes that carry an American legacy. But pride alone will not pay mortgages or secure retirement. The new leadership must balance efficiency with humanity, acknowledging that the Harley story cannot be written without the men and women who weld, assemble, and test every machine. For many on the factory floor, this is not just a paycheck. It is a generational bond. Fathers taught sons to build these machines. Mothers stitched the leather. Entire towns revolved around the hum of the line. Losing Harley means losing identity, and that fear fuels the fight. And beyond the workers, the final judgment will come from two groups, riders and investors, whose reactions in the coming seasons will decide if Harley survives. Riders, investors, and the countdown clock. 2 seasons. That's all Harley has to prove it deserves survival. Riders are watching closely, evaluating whether promised changes materialize in bikes that feel authentically Harley. If prices remain inflated or entry-level models fail to resonate, loyalty will continue to erode. A generation raised on alternatives from Indian, Triumph, and Japanese brands will not wait forever. Investors, too, are keeping score. They are tracking retail performance by region, monitoring product mix, and scrutinizing inventory health. Operating income must show signs of recovery, or confidence will vanish. Harley's stock, once seen as unshakable, now trades with the volatility of a brand on trial. Wall Street wants numbers, but riders want meaning, and the company must satisfy both. The stakes are stark. Deliver on new models and authentic storytelling, and Harley could reclaim momentum. Fail to meet expectations, and the brand risks fading into the background of motorcycle history. The countdown is ticking, and every quarter will serve as a referendum on Harley's future. For riders, that countdown is more than a corporate clock. It is the fate of a culture. Every rally, every dealership, every late-night ride with friends is tied to Harley's survival. Investors see numbers, but bikers see their way of life hanging in the balance. What comes next will not just shape Harley-Davidson, it will shape the very idea of whether American legends can still be reborn. Harley's new CEO didn't just expose Zeits, he exposed the fight for the brand's soul. The truth is out, but the ending hasn't been written yet. Do riders forgive? Do investors flee? Or does Harley vanish into history? That's the question left roaring tonight. Drop your thoughts below, because your voice matters here. And if you want the next chapter before anyone else, hit subscribe. This story isn't over, and neither is the ride.